Where you at, Berto?
I made this shit look too easy.
Great people who weren't great. YouTube, make sure you follow me on Twitch. Where you at, Berto? Link to that will be in the description. Let's do it.
This is a virtue that many of us aspire to achieve. Whether that be through the skills we develop or the impact we have on others, we all have something in our lives that we wish to be great at. But there's a level of greatness that some of us achieve that goes far beyond what we expect from most people, where they make such a significant contribution to the world that we as a society have decided that these are the figures who are great enough to be taught in school.
I already know Martin Luther King's gonna be on this list, boy. I heard that he is a menace to society. I heard that he gets with women. He was fighting for equal rights. My dog was fighting for equal rights. Equal black rights. And I heard that he wanted it to go both ways when it came to them hands. That's the word on the street though. But R.I.P. the legend.
Great enough to be quoted and great enough to be revered in our collective conscience. But in the process of venerating those who did great things, we often fail to learn the full picture of who they are as people, only learning the good, but not the bad or ugly side of them, allowing us to succumb to the halo effect. The error we make when a person's achievement allows us to be blind to everything else about them. Now, to clarify, my intention is not to discredit their actual achievements, nor am I interested in canceling anyone. I'm also not going to mention things people did that were unsurprising for their time, because applying today's expectations on the people of yesterday makes absolutely no sense.
Facts. A lot of y'all be saying that y'all want men from the past. Y'all know men from the past openly was essaying women, man. They was getting bad done. They were doing it dirty, bad, disgusting.
Most people in human...
Karen! Is dinner ready? It's not? Okay. Okay.
History were probably racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever else you can think of. So I'm not really interested in virtue signaling about how someone 100 years ago said something problematic. However, if what they did contradicts what made them great to begin with, that's fair game. And so, I present to you great people who weren't great people. We'll start with pissing off an entire nation of fake accents by talking about Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill. Or just Churchill, better known as that guy who defeated Hitler. To this day, the British consistently regard him as one of the greatest Britons to have ever lived. And if all you know about Churchill are his achievements as the UK's leader against the Nazis, you'd probably feel the same way. But here's the hard truth. If it wasn't for World War II, Churchill would have been remembered for much worse. And that's being generous, since he likely wouldn't be remembered at all. Despite being one of history's most staunch opponents of the Nazi regime and its hateful ideology, he had surprisingly similar views that a racial hierarchy existed, believing that white Protestants were at the top, followed by white Catholics, then Indians, and then Africans.
You put the Indians above us? No, I'm joking. I don't even think that's a good joke. My bad, I take that back. That's bad.
Apparently the other races didn't matter enough. Again, I'm not interested in bringing up all his comments if those ideas were mainstream. But even during that time, his views on racial supremacy to justify British imperialism were considered to be fringe and extreme. As late as 1955, 10 years after defeating the Nazis, he reportedly suggested the phrase, "Keep England white," as a good slogan to use against immigration. But perhaps the worst stain on Churchill's legacy is his action, or rather, lack of action, during the Bengal famine of 1943. While British officials begged for food supplies to be directed for India, Churchill and his cabinet ordered 170,000 tons of wheat from Australia to be transported to Europe in order to build a stockpile for European civilians. Let me say that again. He ordered food to pass by millions of starving people who were his British subjects at the time in order to be used for storage in Europe. But this isn't terribly surprising given that he once said, "I hate Indians. They are a beastly people with a beastly religion," as well as blaming the famine severity on his view that Indians breed like rabbits. By the time he finally approved for food to be sent, up to 3 million people were already dead. Lastly, the man hated Gandhi with a passion, since he represented a largely peaceful movement advocating for Indian independence. Consistent with earlier points about his belief that certain races were inferior to others and his general disdain for India, Churchill was completely against any form of self-determination for Britain's colonies, and actively wished for Gandhi and his movement to die in failure. Now that I've pissed off the English and made goodwill with the Indians, it's time to burn the bridge with my fellow Indians and talk about Gandhi.
Really? I thought this guy was like, sent from heaven himself. Like, you know what I'm saying? God given, like hand picked. Like, yo, this is a good person. A good person, thick through thin. That's all I know about Gandhi. Let's see.
This man has been rightfully celebrated by India for helping to bring about the country's independence from the United Kingdom, and he's admired internationally for his use of non-violent activism. But despite his lifelong battle against the oppression of Indians by the British Empire, he didn't seem to mind knowing that the same empire was also oppressing Africans, referring to them as savages, half-heathen natives, uncivilized, and dirty like animals. How someone can have those beliefs about a group of
Come on, Gandhi. Look at you. You can't say that about us. Not when you walking around looking like Slender Man, nigga. Come on, bruh.
people, but also insist that those beliefs don't apply to his own group is baffling to say the least. It would be a bit like him saying, "Hey Britain, you need to stop viewing Indians as dirty, uncivilized people and give us independence." Oh wait, you meant the Africans? Yeah, I totally agree with you then. Gandhi also had some disturbing ideas about sex. He would conduct so-called tests on his celibacy in order to determine his self-control. To him, lust was an enemy that needed to be destroyed, and he somehow concluded that the best way to defeat it was to sleep with naked teenagers.
Gandhi, what are you? Oh, nah. I almost don't want to take this as fact, bruh. Then again, I don't give a fuck. So I guess I'll take the misinformation even if it's misinformation. Really?
Who were more than half a century younger than him. Despite all these shortfalls of Gandhi, he helped to inspire younger generations throughout his lifetime, convincing leaders around the world to use nonviolent means to advocate for their causes, with one of them being our next great person, Martin Luther King Jr. Revered for his powerful and inspiring speeches protesting the injustices black people face in America, MLK is rightfully at the top of many lists when it comes to history's greatest people. But if there's one thing confirming that he's still just a human, it was women. Throughout his life as a civil rights leader,
Women. Yup. Many men have fallen to that right there.
women in the movement have been consistently put on the sidelines. Figures such as Ella Baker and Dorothy Height describe their personal experiences of often being made subordinate to male leaders like MLK, despite the fact that they were the same skin color, fighting for the same cause. I guess when he gave his famous "I have a dream" speech and declared that all men are created equal,
He meant men. Oh, man. Hey, it was a different time, though. It was a different time. Now, that don't excuse nothing, because if we go back in time and we, we're pointing fingers at all these evil people that did evil things, it was a different time. They were still doing evil things, right? But Man.
He really only meant that all men are created equal. And he wasn't much better with women in his personal relationships either, having been a serial cheater to his wife up until his assassination.
Serial cheater is crazy. The nigga didn't even say he's a cheater. They said he's a serial cheater. God damn.
In fact, as a deeply religious figure, MLK himself recognized the sinfulness of his infidelity and reportedly felt unworthy of the many accolades people place upon him, not wanting to be treated as a saint. But someone who did want to be a saint and ended up becoming one is none other than Saint Teresa of Calcutta. With a name synonymous with selflessness, Mother Teresa continues
I have heard Mother Teresa, and I'm sure
to be admired around the world as a humanitarian icon, even receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979. The best way to comprehend her impact on the world is by understanding that her primary objective wasn't really to reduce suffering, heal the sick, or even help the poor. Rather, it was to bring as many people to the Catholic Church as possible. Oftentimes, this objective happened to overlap with plenty of good things she did, like building schools and orphanages, feeding people, and taking in those with illnesses. But there were also plenty of moments when her objective didn't do much good, and may have even done more harm to those she was supposedly helping. Many of the facilities Mother Teresa ran were observed as having extremely unhygienic conditions and a lack of actual medical staff, food, and painkillers. A former volunteer revealed that dying patients were simply given aspirin rather than proper medication, and recalled how needles continue to be reused without being sterilized.
Damn!
Which would be horrible today, but was even more horrible during the height of the AIDS epidemic. It gets even worse after you learn that Mother Teresa's organization would receive tens of millions of dollars every year, most of which is now believed to be held by the Vatican. Teresa's actions were based on her fundamentalist Catholic beliefs, like her view that poor people suffering in this world was actually a good thing. One saying, "There is something beautiful in seeing the poor accept their lot, to suffer it like Christ's passion. The world gains much from their suffering." It is from this framework of glorifying human pain where we can begin to understand why none of the hundreds of millions of dollars Mother Teresa received over the years went to bringing in doctors to actually help the sick, or why water heaters for washing and cleaning were refused, or why proper medication wasn't purchased. Additionally, a reporter who visited these facilities observed how volunteers would laugh about a boy who urinated while being tied to a bed and saw an older woman tied to a tree. In another orphanage, volunteers would tie up disabled children without batting an eyelid. There was clearly a general roughness toward people in Mother Teresa's care. So despite being declared a saint by Pope Francis in 2015, to many of her critics, she was certainly anything but. What's the opposite of an old woman who's deeply religious, quiet, and conservative? A young man who's anti-religious, violent, and communist. Yet both are in the same category of those who are venerated by millions around the world while not actually being great people. I am, of course, talking about Mr. Ernesto Che Guevara, the ubiquitous symbol for
don't know who this is.
Counterculture and rebellion.
This is a history lesson today, y'all.
He tortured and executed hundreds of people and established Cuba's first military units to aid production, or concentration camps for short. Tens of thousands of intellectuals, gay people, priests, conscientious objectors, and really anyone who is considered antisocial such as hippies were targeted. Which is especially ironic considering that the very people who celebrate him today would be the exact types of people thrown into these forced labor camps or just straight up executed. Despite having the supposed morally superior ideology, Che referred to gay people as sexual perverts, Mexicans as a band of illiterate Indians, and black people as those magnificent examples of the African race who have maintained their racial purity thanks to their lack of affinity with bathing.
Nigga almost sounded like he was complimenting.
Quite the progressive icon. What's probably the most ironic thing about Che the anti-capitalist that would have him rolling in his grave would be the fact that his iconic photograph has been making filthy capitalists filthy rich from the very moment he died, selling millions of posters, hats, flags, hoodies, backpacks, mouse pads, shirts, you name it, being commercialized and exploited more than possibly any other figure in human history. Today, his rock star image to most people makes him less Lennon and more Lennon, which, speaking of the devil.
What the hell's going on here? It's almost scaring me. I feel like a jump scare is about to happen. Please don't let a jump scare happen. I will fucking lose my shit.
Considered one of the greatest musicians of all time, there is no doubt that John Lennon, along with the rest of the Beatles, not you, Ringo, forever changed the world of music. So it's quite understandable why millions of boomers, and frankly, even younger generations adore John Lennon for having created so many songs that continue to be popular to this day. Throughout his life, he was also famous for his commitment to love and peace, and became a symbol for it too. But it's a shame he didn't practice what he preached, given that he
Most people don't.
publicly confessed to having beaten women, cheated on his wife, treated their child like absolute garbage, and then left his family to be with Yoko Ono so they could make whatever the hell this is.
Alright, make it stop.
Perhaps this is why he found it easy to imagine there was no heaven. He probably didn't expect to enter it anyways. But he's far from the only great person to have treated his significant other like crap. Take JFK for instance, a president beloved by Americans from both the left and right. Something that is impossible for any of our politicians today. And sure, part of it is the simple fact that JFK was young, attractive, and assassinated. Comparing that to the two candidates we currently have, where both of them are not young, not attractive, and not assassinated. But an even bigger reason is that we now live in a world where every issue, person, and news story is polarized to such an extent that people will have completely different facts on a subject based on where they get their sources from. Take, for instance, the story about Robert Kennedy Jr.'s Super Bowl ad for his presidential campaign that was very similar to an ad from his uncle, JFK, back when he was running for president. With Ground News, today's sponsor, I can see how there's a blind spot on the right for this story, with only 16 out.
This nigga doing a good ass brand deal. Almost got me. Now I gotta skip it. Hell nah. Sorry.
Insert your favorite theory here. But he's also the president who is too busy cheating on his pregnant wife while partying in Europe to bother coming back home as she gave birth to their child, who ended up being stillborn. Guess who wasn't much better? Dr. Seuss, the man
Dr. Seuss was a piece of shit too.
we all know and love for creating class.
That doesn't really surprise me though. He's an artist. He's an author. And, you know, not to say that all artists are assholes, but kind of similar to, I think of like a musician. You know, they be kind of off the shit for real.
Children's books like The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham. Ooh, okay, not that one.
What?
Wait, not that one either. What the fuck?
Damn, Dr. Seuss!
How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Lorax, and so many other stories. But even he, the man whose books touched the childhoods of every generation going all the way back to the boomers, reportedly had an affair, drove his wife of 40 years to suicide,
Really?
and then married the new woman just 8 months later. Steve Jobs, or as I called him in my previous video, Steve Apple, is considered to be one of the greatest figures in the world of
Yo, this video getting into the real meat, huh?
technology. Putting aside the fact that he was more of the marketer rather than the creator for these.
Well, I knew this. I knew that he was really just the face, but he didn't really push no buttons for real, which is another testament to that. You can do anything. You don't need to be that smart. You just got to have the vision and know how to pick out the people to get the job done. So that's almost respectable. I'm not necessarily mad at that, you know, and I'm sure, or I'd like to think that these people were paid in full. Maybe not though.
Apple products we know and love. Regardless, in many aspects of his life, he was just a straight up bad father, partner, friend, boss, and well, person. From the beginning of his career, Steve Jobs tricked his fellow Apple co-founder Steve Wozniak into working day and night on a project for Atari by imposing an unnecessarily stressful deadline. They agreed to split the payout 50-50, but when Atari paid Jobs $5,000, he claimed they only received $700. And
dang. The thing is, man, and this isn't a testament to say that you need to be an asshole to be successful, because you 100% don't. But one pattern that I tend to see across the board with a lot of successful people is they tend to be really selfish, bro. And I only make an example out of that because on the other end of the spectrum, most people are very selfless. They are almost like doormats of people. While on the other end, the people that are selfish, they're willing to do anything to get what they want out of life. And they'll use people, and then, you know, they make their way to the top. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's what you need to be to obtain the success you want, but to a degree, like, you do have to have some selfishness so you can get what you want out of the situation. But, you know, there's a balance to that, and that's a whole different topic. I don't want to stray too much, but we see the patterns though.
And so gave his friend $350, who later cried when he found out about it. He also refused to provide his most loyal employees with stock options, which prompted the better Steve to try to do the right thing by giving the money out of his own personal share. Outside of being a terrible boss at Apple, Steve Jobs refused to pay a single dollar in child support for his daughter.
Really? Come on, nigga, you Apple. This is the biggest product in the entire world.
His partner to clean houses and live on welfare in order to raise their child.
Wow. So where are his kids today? Because his kids are definitely alive today, aren't they? Are they paid now?
This is all while he was a multi-millionaire, and it wasn't until he was legally forced to provide payment when he finally gave in. On top of all that, he continued to publicly deny that the child was his, even after paternity tests proved that
You are the father.
And one more thing that might seem insignificant to some people, but what I think says a lot about his character. He would regularly park in handicap spots and drove without a license plate because he just didn't like how it made the car look.
That one's just funny. Oh my god. Some people, man.
Yeah, just pure narcissism at its finest. So at this point, it seems clear that being smart doesn't prevent people from making stupid decisions. Even Albert Einstein, whose name is now synonymous with genius, had serious flaws as a person. The physics prodigy was able to figure out four-dimensional spacetime, relativity of simultaneity, kinematic and gravitational time dilation, length contraction, and most famously, mass-energy equivalence, but somehow couldn't figure out how to treat his wife and children like human beings. For one, there's no record of Einstein having ever bothered to meet his first child. And
Really? I didn't even know he had a love interest. I thought the nigga was just too locked in on the science. Maybe he knew something we didn't.
Scholars believe that
he was very smart. He was a smart guy. Maybe Einstein was on to something, huh? Christmas, maybe.
He and his wife gave her up to an orphanage. After having 2 more children with
Really?
the same wife and deciding to keep them this time, he suddenly decided to start cheating on her with his own cousin. And you might assume
Maybe he wasn't that smart. That's fucking disgusting. Come on, man. You're Einstein. You gotta know what that does to the fucking the brain. Your cousin? You was fucking your cousin, dude?
that it was surely a third cousin twice removed or something. But nope, they were first cousins. Their moms were sisters. As if that wasn't bad enough, after his wife found out about the affair, she felt it was still better that Einstein stay with her for their 2 children. But he forced her to accept the following conditions. My clothes are kept in good order. I am served 3 meals a day in my room. We will have no personal relations or affection, unless we're out in public to keep up social appearances. And you must leave my bedroom or study immediately when I ask you to. In other words, he told her, clean and organize my clothes, make me breakfast, lunch, and dinner, do not touch me, and shut up and leave whenever I feel like it.
Damn.
To add insult to injury, he would describe his wife as an unfriendly, humorless creature, writing, I treat my wife as an employee whom I cannot fire.
Maybe he just hated that hoe. Maybe there's something deeper going on, but you know what? I can't even begin to sympathize with a motherfucker that's fucking his cousin. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that we shouldn't even use math or algebra or any type of equations that Einstein has come up with in life. They're inaccurate. We can't trust him. Oh, because he said mx plus b equals something squared? He fucks his cousin. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an idiot. Listen to me, okay?
She ended up having a nervous breakdown after he decided to still leave her and their 2 children and marry his first cousin. Now, one might have hoped that at the very least, he found his true love in his cousin and remained faithful to her happily ever after. But nah, if anything, he had even more affairs with women during his second marriage than his first. So it seems that if you're smart enough, whitewashed enough, respected enough, talented enough, or die early enough, you can get away from the scrutiny of society and maintain a fairly positive legacy. Look, I'm not saying that we need to invalidate people's meaningful achievements just because they also did awful things. And I'm certainly not telling you to buy an Android or listen to the Beach Boys or...
All the Android users are... after hearing that one.
Or be racist? Being a great person and being a great person are 2 very different things. But
Yeah.
what's unfortunate about this world is that too often, we only seem to admire one of them when we should be celebrating both. Yes, we ought to be thankful for all the wonderful things these people did for us. But we should be just as grateful for the great people in our lives that make life truly great.
100, and that was great people who weren't great people. It was a pretty good video. I know I didn't say too much this one, but honestly, it was a history lesson for me. You know, I can't speak too much on things that I don't understand. So I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I did. Love you guys. Appreciate y'all. I'll see you on the next one. Binge the rest of the videos on the channel. And make sure you go follow me on Twitch. Link to that will be in the description so you never miss a live stream when I'm reacting to videos live. And last question. How I look with hats, y'all? Can Berto do the hat swag? I look alright. I typically don't be wearing hats because I be having too much hair in my head, but I recently put this on and I feel like I might be pulling it off. What you think, chat? I could pull the hats up, man.
Where you at, Berto?